Now is it working? Listen for a minute. Make sure it's working. There is always a bit of lag between. Okay, all right, cool. Got the camera, got the microphone working. Oh my gosh, man! And I had a cool joke for the intro. Now, I guess I could just repeat it. I'm gonna repeat it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We allow rough men here on the channel as well. I am your host, Odd Job Entertainment. Audio is still the bane of my existence. Somehow, something changes every time you do a stream, and there are so many things to check that I just forget. Let me go ahead and send that out to the Discord, and then close that down for now. We're going to be talking about lots of stuff today. First off, we're going to talk about holes and all the things you can put in them. And don't worry, this is a family-friendly channel. We're talking about machinist fits. Okay? Now, you probably don't think about this, but there are different kinds of fits that are required depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And in the world of engineering, there is a whole host of properties that you can get through simple changes to the fit tolerance of a hole. For instance, let me put on my artist glove and we'll draw a picture here. What color should we use today? It looks like it's set to yellow, so I think I'll just stick with yellow. All right, so here we have a pin and the hole. And you can tell by the way that I've drawn these that obviously this pin is not going to fit inside this hole. And this is one of the most difficult fits to get. This is called an interference fit. And this is what you would use when you never want the pin and the hole to be separated again. There's a lot of good examples out there, but one that comes to mind is what you might find on a planetary gearbox for the axles inside of a drill. So depending on the make and model, a lot of times, in this case, you can see that these are clearly different metals for the axle and this carrier here. So this is probably a press interference fit. And so that's a case where they've undersized the hole so that the pin will never be able to escape. And there's a couple ways to actually get the pin into the hole. One thing you can do is you can chamfer the edges. Like so. And now this diameter is less than the overall diameter of the hole. And if you have this kind of allowance built in, if you have a strong enough press, you can just shove these together and you're going to get an averaging where the hole will have to stretch out a little bit and the pin will have to shrink some. Okay? That's one method, and that's used where the interference fit is relatively small compared to some of the interference fits that are possible. The next step up is you can actually heat the hole or cool down the pin. Mark Rober actually did a really good example of this with his ice cream container. And basically, what you do here is when you have a metallic object, you can heat it up. So in this case, let's do the hole, right? And when you heat it up, it's going to expand. Well, if you can get that expansion to match the diameter of your pin, then it doesn't actually take that much force to get the pin into the hole. But what's going to happen when it cools? Well, it's going to want to go back to its original size. So the hole is going to shrink down around the pin, creating that interference fit. And I've got pulled up here the Class 5 Locational Interference Tolerance Chart for holes and bolts from Engineer's Edge. And this gives us an idea as to what kinds of interference fits are possible. Okay, so for a 1/8 hole, that's what this 0.125 denotes. The hole diameter is going to be undersized, so 0.124 up to 0.1248. And the shaft diameter, or the pin, is going to be oversized, 0.1254 and 0.1250. And that gives us a range of a maximum and minimum interference fit between 0.0002, or let's see, that would be tens, hundreds, thousands, 2/10. I believe that's how you'd say it. I don't know. I'm not actually a machinist, so I'm still trying to figure out how they speak. And 14 thousandths, I think, is what that would be. But in any case, this gives you a range of what interference fits are possible. So like I was saying before with the simple press example, if all you're going to do is give the pin a little bit of a chamfer and try to ram it in with an arbor press, that's going to be on the lower end of the range of fits. So that might be your 0.0002. Whereas if you heat up the hole or freeze the pin, you can get a much tighter fit and use that higher end of the range with the 0.0014. But this isn't the only kind of fit that's out there. This is just when you don't want things to move at all. If we step down to Class 4, medium running fit tolerances are intended for higher running speeds or heavy journal pressures, or both. So these are parts that are allowed to move, and you want to constrain their movement. One thing that you'll see on a lot of different mechanical fixtures is a term called preload. You see this especially with bearings. And the idea of preload is that let's say you have your bearing sleeve and you have the inner sleeve, and then you have the balls that run in the middle. And do I happen to have a bearing near me? Doesn't look like I do. Dang it. If you're handling a bearing, you're going to notice that it doesn't perfectly constrain the movement the way that you might think it does. This is a pretty standard roller bearing, and it's going to have movement where the inner ring will be able to move relative to the outer ring. But then if we view this from the side, like a cutaway here. Look how fast I am. If we look at it from the side, you might also get a case where it can move at an angle from the center line. Right, so this is our line that goes through the axle. That's the line, that's the axis that we want it to rotate around, but you might get an angle created by the movement between these various parts. Okay, so that's an example for a bearing, and the way that you fix this is you add compressive forces around the outside of the bearing and the inside of the inner bearing. And what that's going to do is that's going to take up any of the slop that the bearing has and force it to run in the way that it was intended to. And this is often a requirement for higher industrial grade purposes. Like if you're just designing a fidget toy, probably not that important, right? But if you need this bearing to last a really long time and do the absolute best it can in a very harsh environment, preload is absolutely going to be one of the characteristics you're going to look at. And we're looking at a very similar concept here with these class 4 holes. They are intended for higher running speeds or heavy journal pressures or both. So this is going to be a heavy duty spinning object that needs to be able to perform at a high level, and it needs to be constrained. The bad part about having this kind of excess movement, as we show in this diagram, is even if it's just a small angle, you could be creating a situation where you're generating a torque that adversely affects the system's performance. For example, let's consider a bike wheel. So again, this is a cutaway view going through the side. So you have your spokes, and they all connect to a central hub where they spin around the cassette bearing. Okay? If your bike wheel somehow bends such that it's now positioned like this relative to its cassette, that creates a torque through the middle of your cassette, and that could cause these spokes on the outside to stretch and tear. It could cause these ones on the inside to bend and kink, which also isn't going to be good. It could also be causing the, let's see, need to add another line to kind of imply it here, the rim of your tire to bend. And all of this is going to be really bad for your bike if it gets too extreme. That's going to mean that you need to get a new wheel. Not a good day. So if you constrain the movement so that that's not allowed, your bike is going to perform a lot better and it's going to last a lot longer. And one of the ways that we do that is you constrain the movement so that those kinds of problems don't arise in the first place. So having a tight-fitting bearing is one way to accomplish that. That's going to make it so that this case never happens. Now, if you've ever built something yourself, you're probably more familiar with the class 2 or 1 through 3 fits. And these are generally what people are going to be capable of creating with a simple drill. And you can see here, if we look at the clearance, now, see, this is the difference, right? When we looked at class 5, you were talking about interference. Step down to class 4, now we're talking about clearance, okay? So now we are talking about a case where where the pin is actually smaller than the hole it goes into. Right? And we call the total distance that we've afforded ourselves, this is our clearance. Okay? So that's what we're talking about when we look at this diagram. So clearance maximum and minimum, we go from 0.001 to 0.0013 in the case of a class 4. But with a class 3, we can see that it gets significantly larger. Right? And that's with the 1/8 hole. If we step all the way down to a class 1, now we've got a clearance of 0.0004 up to 0.0022. So again, this distance that I have highlighted here in yellow, you take this plus this, and that can be between 0.0004 to 0.0022. And these are in inches, by the way. And one question that arises from this is, well, why do we have a range like that? Why isn't it always just a set value? Why do you need to specify that it could be as low as this and as high as this? And if we were to zoom in on the surface of our metal, in fact, let's do that. Let's look up a picture of steel under electron microscope. You might think that metal is smooth, but it's actually not. It can be very rough indeed. That's not quite what I'm looking at. These are always cool. This is what it looks like when you're shaving off steel with a cutting bit, by the way. Everything is a goo. Everything in life is a goo. It just depends on how much force is applied. Oh, here we go. So this looks like, and I'm not the best when it comes to looking at electron microscope images, but this looks like it could be a machine surface. We've got some kind of pocket there that might have been a void, but I believe these are machining marks. Has Google Images gotten like worse over time for anyone else, by the way? Or is that just a me thing? Mr. Aero Capital Fellow raises a good question. Why don't bearings list their static and rolling friction? I think that would be because before I say something, let me pull up McMastercar and see what stats they do give us. Just click into one, doesn't really matter. Product detail. And it doesn't look like it actually lists either of them. But I think that if I had to guess, I think that it would be because it can be extremely variable depending on how the bearing is used. When you buy a bearing, they will often come with light lubrication already applied, and that lubrication is going to add some level of damping, which does increase the friction. And if you are looking for the absolute lowest friction, as might be the case for a fidget spinner, then you're going to want to soak the bearing to remove that lubrication entirely, right? And you might put some other kind of dry lubricant on it just to keep it safe, but generally speaking, the least friction you're going to have is probably just going to be without any lubrication at all. And so that would change the friction value. So at that point, was it useful to list it in the first place? But the other aspect is you could add different lubrication. In the case of my joysticks, for instance, they came with some grease applied. It's called a damping grease. But it wasn't giving the performance that I wanted, so I actually changed that myself and added a different kind of damping grease to get a stiffer action on the joystick. So that would be my guess. But I don't know. How far off the mark am I? Let's see. Maybe if we skip the microscope part, this will be a good enough image. All right, so that looks like brushed steel. That doesn't look like milled steel. Here we go. This is what I wanted. Okay, so these circular or radial lines, this is from a fly cutter. And let's show what a fly cutter looks like. You basically have a large spinning disc, and you put a cutter at the end of the disc. Okay, and then this is your spindle that goes up into the machine. We'll talk about why these are slanted in a minute. That's a very important feature on a cutter called a taper. But as this gets spinning around, so it's spinning, this cutter is going to leave those kinds of patterns on the steel. And if the cutter was moving across the steel from right to left, so it's been moving this way, that means that there's sections of steel over here that have already been hit once with the cutter when it was over here. And then on the trailing edge, you'll have these forward lines overlapping the rear lines. Okay, so if we look at that picture again, we see that that's exactly what's happening. You have crisscrossing circular lines. Okay, if you touch this, it's going to feel very flat. You're not going to be able to pick at these with your fingernail. It's going to feel smooth to the touch. But what's going on at a microscopic level is it's entirely impossible to get a perfectly flat surface. So this line represents the ideal. And what we actually get is something more like this. So the average, it might be the ideal that we're looking for, But the reality is we're still looking at several peaks and valleys. Okay? Now let's look at a drill bit and see how that might affect this. So there's a good picture. You can see that you don't have a, like, if we were to take our hole, and this is our top view, right? And we want to say this part of the hole right here, and we're looking at a line going down this hole. So from a different view, that would look like this, and we want to look at a line right here. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, if we look at our drill bit, we see that it does not make constant contact, right? It's going to make draw a really big drill bit here. It's going to have a gap here, and then it's going to have another one further up, and so it's not going to be making perfect contact. That alone adds some variance to how the cut is being made. And the other aspect is the drill bit itself is not going to be perfectly straight, nor is it going to be perfectly rigid. So this becomes a problem when you talk about really deep holes. You can actually get the drill bit to wander a bit, and then if your intended hole was supposed to be straight down like this, pretty soon you're in a world of trouble. If you need a better surface quality on your drill or on your hole, then you use what's called a reamer. And these are going to be one of the more common types that are out there with straight flutes. There we go. There's a better picture. So it's a big, long, straight flute, and you actually use this to finish a drilled hole. So you start with a hole that's slightly undersized from what you want. And then you have your true hole size that corresponds to the diameter listed by your reamer. So you drill the hole first, then you come in with the reamer, and that's going to give you a better surface quality and a more accurate fit for the hole. When you're talking about doing press fits and those class 5 and 4, you're typically going to be doing those with a reamer because you need to know that the diameter is exactly what you specified it to, else you're not going to get the level of retention that you need for that hole. But again, if we zoom in on the side of our hole here, we're going to see that that surface is not entirely smooth. It's still going to be rough. And so one thing that these different fit tolerances allow us to do is we can take the average line of two pieces of metal and push them together by a specified amount. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with these different fit tolerances. So if I have, that's my hole surface, and then I have my pin surface, and it's something like that, just maybe when I press them together, I get the best of both worlds and I get a good fit. A straight-ish line. That's part of the idea with an interference fit, And then when you're talking about rolling resistance, you're just trying to get them close enough that they are able to make enough contact to keep each other constrained. So, why am I thinking about holes so much? Well, one, I'm a man, and I guess that's what we tend to do. But the other part is I've been working on what's called a tool changer for a 3D printer. What you see here is not my design. This is a really cool design made by not that bank of tabs. This bank of tabs. Draft Shift? I think that's the name of the guy. And I just realized I'm not actually listening to anything in those, so I don't need to have those on. This is his stealth changer. And I should probably make the camera bigger, huh? Let's see. Drill bit suffered more from wobble, which causes runout or circularity issues. Absolutely true. Yes. Surface finishes improved with reaming and boring. Yes, those are both very good points. So what Mr. Arrowhead is pointing out, and I closed them, but the reamer is going to be much more rigid, so it's going to stay straighter in the hole. It's also removing significantly less material, so there's less stress on the reamer compared to a drill bit. Drill bits are really good for removing lots of material rather quickly, but they're going to be more flexible, which is going to cause deflection. They're going to wobble, and they're going to have runout. Runout is the side-to-side movement of a tool. And all of that contributes to the hole not being quite the way you want. Here's actually an article that I had pulled up in preparation for that, kind of showing the types of errors you can get. So with this first image, we're looking at something that has very poor circularity, right? This is a potato. You would not even call this a hole, right? But keep in mind that this is dramatized for effect. Each of these grid squares is 100 microns. Yes, I think that's right. Symbology. So these are teeny tiny differences. Right? Another issue that you might have is it might not be in the exact center of where you need the hole. This is like what we've talked about in other videos where you have accuracy versus precision. If you're extremely accurate, your average hits will be centered on your target, right? But if you're not precise, then you could be all over the place. But as long as the average is over the bullseye, that's accurate. Or you could be precise, where all of your hits are very close together, but if you lack accuracy, you could be off in the far corner of your target, right? Same thing applies here with the drill. If you are off from where you are intending to drill the hole, you are not accurate. But if you have really good circularity, you might say that you're very precise. But you want to have a combination of the two in order to get the properties that you want for the project you're working on. And then when you come back in with a reamer or boring bit, boring bar, which is what this is. So basically you'll have either, depending on the machine you're using, right? Because a mill spins the tool and a lathe spins the workpiece. So if this were in a lathe, this would be stationary, and you'd have your hole spinning rapidly around the boring bit, and then this tiny cutter head is creeping up to the right dimension that you're looking for. I took a CAD CAM class, and so I know the very basics, but everything else comes from watching other people on YouTube. But you will get quite a bit better surface quality using either a reamer or a boring bit. Because the boring bit is still a small section is being removed in a line, if you're going too quickly, you can still get the same kinds of errors that you see with the fly cutter example, where you might be causing pits and valleys, hills and valleys, based off of where the cutter head happened to be at the time. So boring operations, you're going to tend to be moving very slowly in and out of the hole, while the work piece is just going to be like ripping around, or vice versa. You basically, the depth inside the hole is not going to be changing very quickly when you're doing a boring operation, because you want to minimize that kind of error as much as possible. But back to this thing. Oh, and I forgot the reason why I had pulled OBS up, was so that I could change the dimensions of the camera a little bit. There we go. So this is the Stealth Changer by Draft Shift, and the purpose of this is you would mount all the needed parts for a 3D printer tool head onto this gray carriage here. This is printed out of PETG, or carbon fiber PETG, and it's removable from this aluminum fixture plate. I got this off of Fabrico. They are a online 3D printer part retailer, and now that I have this off, I'm realizing that I don't have anything constraining it to the linear rail, so if I flick this off too far, I could actually cause myself a world of pain where all the ball bearings fall out. So let's hope I'm careful about that. But let's take a look at how Draft Shift has designed the fitment of his carriage. You can see he's using 3 locating pins, and these have a rounded head, and then he's further enhancing the fit with 3 magnets. There's 2 screw heads towards the bottom, and then there's a magnet here in the middle. If I show you the fixture plate, we see the inverse. You have 2 magnets on the bottom and a screw on the top, and those are working together to create what I think is a pretty good fit. So you get them lined up, and then the magnets kind of take over for you, and they get this thing planted fairly well. The problem is there is still some wobble in a design like this, and the way that Draft Shift is mitigating that to a degree is through the use of the screws. So you're actually instructed to back these out or tighten them up in order to get the best fit. So that's one way to adjust it. You can also tweak the position of the pins. Don't give away the end, Mr. Aero Capital Fellow. we're getting there. You can also tweak the position of the pins a little bit, but you don't have a lot of adjustability built into those pins. The primary adjustment mechanism is through those screws. Okay, now I want to be really clear. This is an awesome project, and I don't in any way mean to bag on Draft Shift. I think that this is a fantastic basis. I just think that it could be a little better with the locating features, and that's where tapers come in. So tapers are magic, because I just took the glove off. Let's go back to our drawing and think about all the kinds of errors that we can have with holes. Okay, so there's our hole. And then for the sake of convenience, I'm just going to draw a line for the pin. But you guys are all going to understand that these are supposed to be about the same size, except for the places where I specifically say otherwise, right? We already know that the fit can be off, right? But we could, in theory, get a pin that exactly matches the diameter of our hole. Let me make sure that my head isn't in the way. It totally is. So let's move this over. Oh, why is it? Why are you like this, Adobe? Let's. I guess let's redraw this on the far side of the canvas, so that you guys don't just look at my head the whole time. Zoom in a little bit. All right, let's see how that looks. Does that look good? That looks good. Okay, so in theory, we could get a pin that exactly matches the diameter, and suppose we use very high lubricity materials, and we get it such that the surface quality is immaculate, right? We could have a situation where that pin would perfectly fill that hole, but we already know that that's probably not the case, right? So there's going to be side to side wobble, where let's say that the pin is perfectly parallel to the hole, but because its diameter is off, there is some amount of movement that it can make side to side, right? And I'm trying to think of a way to show this without it looking crude, but I don't think that there really is another option. Hole, pin, wobble, right? Not good in the case of a locating feature. We want that to be reduced. So you want to use a pin that is as close to the diameter of the hole as possible. Another kind of error is you can have it be tilted. And as gamers, we should all know about being tilted, right? We're tilted most of the time. And that's where the axis of the pin is not parallel to the hole. And this can especially cause binding, right? Imagine the corner of your pin hitting up against the side of your hole here. If you're trying to push that pin in, you're going to be scraping those materials against each other, and you're going to have a pressure concentration at that corner, and that's going to cause some significant binding. If you imagine also rotating this pin, you have another contact point over here, where it's just going to be rubbing in a really bad way. This is not the good kind of rubbing. So that's another kind of error we can have. You can also have issues where depth is a concern. These aren't as critical for the most part, but let's say your pin is not as long as it needs to be, and so there's some distance where you're bottoming out before you get to the bottom, or you could have the inverse. The pin could be too long, and so you bottom out before you get to the top of the pin, right? Both of these are potential problems. But what if I told you that there was a way to fix this most of the time? That is where you have something like tapers come in. And before we show the magic of that, there's one more thing I need to show you, and that is how you can have a situation where you actually get very minimal contact between straight-walled holes and pins, right? We've already talked about our microscopic surfaces and how if you zoom in, you're gonna see hills and valleys, right? Well, you could have a perfect storm where only the hills are touching and that results in very minimal contact between both the pin and the hole. And if we're talking about locating something, we want to maximize that contact because that contact is what's going to keep things from moving around. So, what happens if we take those same imperfect surfaces and we put them at an angle? What do you think is going to happen? Well, if we are concerned about contact, we can always just push the taper harder and we can increase the contact by brute forcing it. That's one thing that we can accomplish. And the greater the surface contact between the taper and its hole, the more grip that the hole and taper are going to have on each other. And a perfect example of this is CNC tool heads. Or I should say holders, right? I should have stayed back here. Let's do the image search. So if you've only ever used like a drill bit, this actually seems kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you look at your drill bit and you have that hex-shaped pattern, and it makes sense why the drill bit is able to be driven, right? The drill is simply grabbing onto it, usually with 3 lobes, right, in most drill trucks, and it's twisting the drill bit by grabbing the flats, right? But then you look at a CNC tool holder, and it's like, where's the flats? There is none. And what's actually going on is these are so precisely machined that if you hold the holder, which is this part, in its spindle, which is going to be the large motorized piece of equipment that holds all of this, they are so well machined that they make the maximum amount of surface contact that we have been able to achieve as humankind. You can take a Sharpie and scribble all over the sides of your holder, and if you spin it around inside the spindle, the Sharpie's going to get rubbed off, right? We're talking like that level of precision. It's really, it's something beautiful. And that insane amount of surface contact allows these cutters to be driven at really high torques and speeds without slipping. There's another important detail about this, though. If I have because that's how we get precision with like a CNC machine, right? But what if I have only the ability to make a reasonably good straight walled hole, right? Something like this. We know that if we have a straight pin, we can have all those errors we mentioned before, where the pin might not be parallel to the hole, or it might have side-to-side wobble. But if we talk about a tapered pin, when we're talking about the side-to-side wobble, well, it will simply sink into the hole to the point where the side-to-side wobble is eliminated. And as long as we have reasonably well machined carriages for the taper, we can do a pretty good job of ensuring that the axis of the taper pin is also going to be parallel to the hole. And so what you get with a tapered pin and a straight walled hole is you get a self-centering mechanism. And so these are something that you can buy on McMaster-Carr. I don't need that one anymore, or that one. I need to keep that closed. These are something that you can get in McMaster-Carr. And these are commonly used for aligning all kinds of things, especially in the industrial world, like tool dies, stamping dies, things like that. Anything that is going to be repeatedly put together and then taken apart, you're pretty much going to see a tapered pin on all of those, because a straight pin is just too much of a headache most of the time, and it doesn't guarantee the fitment that you're looking for, but you can almost guarantee it all the time with a tapered pin. So let's see. Locating pins are a good example. These ones are ones that come with a shoulder, right? So you have a shoulder, and then you have a little tapered section there. Or probably not on those, actually. Those are probably more geometrically based. You can also get these threaded taper pins, right? And so you could screw these directly into whatever you're trying to align with something else. That's funny. I don't think I've noticed these on McMaster-Carr before, but that's a little scale image, I guess, for you. So if you hold your hand like this, then you could get a good scale reference. I guess you could look at your friend's hand, or you could probably just make an assumption based on your other hand. But you can also get tapered pins from Misumi. I found this somewhat recently. I don't want to log in though. I just want to go to the website. Ah! There we go. There we go. And what I like about Misumi is, at least in the realm of tapered pins, I found that they actually have a wider selection compared to McMaster-Carr, and they tend to be a bit cheaper too. So you buy them based off of what features you're looking for, and then you narrow it down based on size. So let's look for something that looks like what I had in mind, which I think is going to be these. Right? Then you go through their configurator, and this is actually a really nice configurator too. I'm not sponsored by Misumi. I highly doubt they sponsored that many people, but I've been able to find the parts that I've been looking and designing for very easily using this configurator. So these are something that you can get your hands on, right? It's not egregious, and if you go through Misumi, it seems to actually be fairly cheap too. But if we simply replaced those three pins with tapered pins, you would get all the benefits of tapers that I've already mentioned here, and it would basically eliminate any need to adjust this ever. And so when you're talking about a tool changer, well, you have multiple tools, right? And so not having to adjust any of your tools, that's a huge benefit. Um, it gives you the ability to just say, yeah, it's going to work every time, and you don't have to worry about it. So, tapered locating pins, draft shift, if you happen to be watching, might be something you want to implement. But if not, someone I know is also working on something that aims to do just that. So I want to show you what I've been working on for my SB08. I've been playing around with different designs for a tool changer myself. And the difference between what I'm doing and what other tool changer designs have done thus far is I don't want to make the whole tool head be what changes. I just want to focus on changing the hot end and the filament path only. right? So let me show you two very important pieces that I have here. These are the filament guide nuts for a Orbiter V2 extruder that were very kindly sent to me by Bondtech for the purpose of developing my tool changer. And if I show you really close so that you can get an idea of what I'm holding, it's got a little small taper. That's to get it in between the gears as close as possible. And then it's got a very precise hole for the filament, a threaded body section, and a slot for screwing it into whatever you're trying to mount it in onto. Okay? And if you have two of them stacked vertically with just a small gap for the filament to go between them, what you essentially have made is a flosser. And if you push that into an extruder, you can force the extruder to take on a new filament, assuming that you took out the old flosser, right? So essentially what I'm trying to do is make a mounting system for just the hot end with the filament coming out of it, and then I'm going to redesign the orbiter to be able to be forced open and accept new filament paths. The benefit of a design like this is it's going to make it so that instead of changing the entire tool head, you'll just be changing the hot end and the filament, which means that you save a lot of money when adding more tool heads. Currently, you're looking at anywhere from $150 up to $300 in some extreme cases to add another tool to a tool changing setup. That's a big part of why a lot of people don't want to go the tool changer route, is because of that huge cost. It's something that keeps the Prusa XL from taking off and being more mainstream, because every time you want to add another head to your XL, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. But if you can make it so that you're just changing out the hot end, then you can save a lot of the initial cost of that setup. So that is ultimately why I've been learning about pins and tapers. Sumi's website in search engine is not awful. We just used it. I found exactly what I was looking for. And this is very similar to how the Bondtech index will work, as Mr. Aero Capital Fellow points out. But the Bondtech index uses a proprietary hot end and an induction heater, hence index. That's where they get the name, is the induction heater part. But that locks you into using only Bondtech parts, and you have a case where, at least in the 3D printing hobby space, you have people who have a lot of hot ends already. And so while I think that the Bondtech index has a lot going for it, and it definitely serves a purpose, it doesn't do much to recycle any of this older existing equipment. And if you've already bought into an ecosystem of nozzles and filaments and all this different stuff, you have this stuff lying around, you don't want to just toss it, right? You want to get use out of it. It also puts a restriction in that you're relying on Bondtech to come out with all the equipment that you may need quickly enough for you to be able to continue your workflow. So, am I going to be able to outpace them? I don't know, probably not. This project has already taken me a lot longer than I thought it would, and you guys have seen how I am with all my other projects. On the personal side, I do struggle to finish. But this is something that I'm working towards, and if I can pull it off, it will allow you to use your existing hardware, as well as open up the possibility to use any other hardware that's out there, as long as it fits inside the tool changer carriage system, which should be pretty forgiving. But I think that covers the discussion for tapers and pins and holes. I think we've adequately covered holes and all the things you can put in them. So if you came in for just that on the stream, I hope you're well served. Um, and you say that there's a lot of mass on the tool head, but I think you'd be wrong, Mr. Aero Capital Fellow. That's so far the way that I've designed my tool head, it's actually pretty competitive. I can't. It'd be too much of a hassle to pull up exact numbers right now, but I am still trying to keep the tool head as light as possible, because that directly affects the ability of the printer to print quickly. But it is something that I'm keeping in mind. I'm trying to keep it as lightweight as possible, and so far in the design stages, I've done pretty good. That's also only one iteration, so do also keep that in mind. For higher speed printing, you're going to want better cooling. So if you're looking at like really high end, even just PLA printers like the VZBot, they actually use a CPAP, which is part of one of the changes I've been making to some of my designs, is to incorporate a CPAP, but there is some additional complexity overhead that you need to manage if you're going to use a CPAP fan, because the fan does not spin down or up as quickly as simple radial fans do. But a lot of the commercial print heads, they just don't have enough cooling to keep up with the speed that they would otherwise be capable of. So having two fans allows you to get that. But also, I mean, if we're talking about the weight of those fans, each one of those fans is 6 grams, right? So they are a very small contribution to the overall weight of the tool head. There's optimizations that I have to make in a lot of other places to meet the goals that I'm setting for myself. The fans are like the least of my concern. Okay, I think I successfully got through an entire topic without getting too derailed. Good for me. I'm kind of proud of myself. Let's delete these layers so that I can use this later. Let me pull up my notes and see what else we were going to talk about. Okay, so that was the first topic. Now I do actually need my headphones because we're going to be talking about something else, and it requires a vidya. Not this one yet, though. Gotta talk about this one. And I can shrink my head down a little bit now, right? Ah! There we go. So, CIG is coming out with another ship. It's the RSI Meteor. I have some thoughts on it, but let's kind of talk about them as we go through the video. Okay, so we just watched a couple seconds. Is the audio coming through? Please tell me it is. No audio. Oh my gosh. Okay, dang it. Gosh dang it. Every time. How about now? Did it play now? Doesn't look like it's working yet. Let's keep playing around with it. Now, the bars are moving. Pause it for a second. Let stream catch up. Tell me if I fixed it. Dang it. Okay. I hate this so much. Okay, how about now? A few more seconds there. Start the video over. 2. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Audio output capture. Okay. Play a couple seconds of that. Oh, now you hear it. Okay, good.
The Meteor is, at its core, a medium fighter you can spend your time on, you can live on it. It's got everything you'd need to live out in space.
Take off. Now it's too loud. Okay.
What did you first think when you heard we were taking the Mantis chassis and making a new fighter?
Mantis is a wonderful ship. I just like fighters more.
I was excited because the Mantis is quite a well-known ship.
We want
Need to
give
drop them
justice
down a
to
little
the
more.
Mantis, but we also want to make it more aggressive, more sleek, and I think we got to it.
Okay, good. So, all right. If in case you didn't catch it, this is the reason why the Guardian, why that newest Guardian doesn't have a bed is because they put the bed in this one, and they need to sell you on this one.
Starting with the front, first thing that you're going to notice on this bad boy is the 2 bespoke size 5 ballistic cannons that we ended up adding.
Size 5s.
They're massive guns.
They are massive,
Doesn't like massive guns.
but they're also not the only ones.
Cannon before, they'll be very low rate of fire, but the amount of damage that you're going to do when you hit is absolutely insane. Repeaters, you're going bam, 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 bam. Gatling is just brrrr. Cannons are bam, 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 bam.
But they also kind of suck, so most of the time you're not using cannons.
Devastating in the hands of a skilled pilot. As you come around, you can see that similarity.
I guess that's the problem. I'm just not a skilled pilot. It's not the fact that it's been the meta to use laser repeaters for years at this point, but yeah, I'm just not the skilled pilot I think I am.
Is between the Polaris and the Meteor. It's like you took a Mantis exterior and then asked the person who made the Polaris exterior to find a middle ground.
When I was working on this, I took like a lot of inspiration from the Polaris. I worked on the exterior of that ship.
So just a personal gripe, if they're gonna have people calling in to do their section.
When I was working on this,
Like, CIG, give him a better webcam. What are you doing? Like, why are you gonna have him call in if you don't give the man a proper webcam to do so with? I mean, it's a very minor gripe, but come on. Use a couple of the ship purchases that we all make and get this man a webcam so that he can look good on camera.
took like a lot of inspiration from the Polaris. I worked on the exterior of that ship for a long time, so I think it's absolutely ingrained in my mind. Although
I do think that the styling looks good. I'm conflicted on having it be put on the Mantis chassis because the Mantis already exists.
That can fit on size 4 rack, single S4 missiles. You can swap those down to 2 size 3s.
Okay, so 4 racks, right? 4. You start off with 4 size 4s. Then you can bump up to 8 size 3s.
4 size 2s, or
16 size 2s, or 32 size 1s.
That whole new like lower section.
32 missiles on what is not per se a missile ship is kind of insane.
It kind of like fattens it up a bit, and it just looks a little bit more aggressive, which to me is never a bad thing.
interior, as soon as you end up going up the ramp, that's had a nice little
Oh, look, it's got nice little indicator lights. That should be standard on all ships.
lighting effect added for it. You'll go in and see that the inside has been completely remodeled from the old Mantis interior. The Zeus did.
Here, I feel like the update in style does make a lot of sense. I do not like the interior of the base Mantis. I feel like it, I don't know, it feels claustrophobic. It's too tight. This somehow feels a lot more open and inviting. And I think the brighter colors help a lot too. So I think what I would have preferred is they update the interior of with this ship, but then also retroactively on the Mantis, but keep the exterior of the Mantis because that was already pretty close to what RSI has been going with. I think it needed just a few tweaks to update the style, but I think going so heavy on the paneling on this ship, I feel kind of a mistake.
So much for bringing that interior design language for RSI forward. Thank you, Montreal team. It's a lot sleeker now. There's these really clear blue lines that run through the core of the ship. They go up the walls onto the ceiling. They frame the parts of your room. You've got nice floor mats as well. It just feels more cohesive. So the cockpit is all framing your eye towards that massive glass canopy that you're familiar with on the Mantis.
And the Mantis has had one of the better RSI canopies
Taken
for a
the
really
ZC
long
to
time
another level,
already.
improving the back-end workflow of how we use it, which is going to improve all RSI ships going forward.
turning.
See, they have to put that in there because you have people like me who bought a Galaxy JPEG and really thought that they were going to get their ship after the Polaris, and now we're back behind the Perseus, and who knows what other ship they're going to surprise us with before the Galaxy ever gets released.
Round from the seat, you can.
But
keep
they keep me hoping by saying those lines like, and this is really going to help us speed up our delivery of RSI ships. I'm on to you, CIG. I know what you're doing.
have a button, and when you press that, you will have a weapon rack that's coming out of the floor.
There's a scene in John Wick where he hits the floor with a sledgehammer to reveal all of his guns and the stash. And we were like, we can't do that, but we could make kind of a secret button on the bulkhead that pops out the floor.
It is cool that you have a little built-in armory. I'm not actually a super fan of it coming out of the floor like that. I think it's better from a gameplay perspective to keep it off to the side and keep it integrated into a wall. Because what I'm thinking of is when they have force reactions, this is just another thing to trip and fall into. And it's another thing to have to navigate around. And while this might make a lot of sense in a real world spaceship, if that ever is a thing, you know, where you're carrying weapons like this into outer space, as long as people can walk around it, then you're fine. But with video game characters, you always have to give them much more space than you think you need because of clipping and geometry and collisions and things like that. You know, that's actually why a lot of the ships back in the day got increased in size. I think the Avenger Titan was increased by 33%, was because they had built them to human scale, and then it was just a miserable play experience. So if you actually look at the ships in game now, they're all quite a bit bigger than you would actually think they would be, because you have to accommodate a video game character, not a person. I actually have not seen Fifth Element. I keep being told that I need to see it, and then when I go to look for it, it's not on any of the streaming platforms that I pay for, and I can't be bothered to get yet another streaming service. So maybe someday, but hasn't happened yet.
So every ship I work on, I make sure to put some kind of inspection sticker on that lists the designers and artists that worked on.
I did know this. Once I learned it from the video, it does make me kind of want to go and see if I can find those inspection stickers on any of my ships. But I guess it is dependent on whether or not this guy worked on it.
And for this ship, we've added someone else.
Someone else?
Yeah, okay, let me read you that.
No, I'll be someone else.
The paints on this one were
Disco!
fun to do. We wanted to kind of get that iridescence going, and yeah, I feel like we covered a wide spectrum of tastes.
The default we ended up changing out for our darker paint tone. This way you'll be a little bit stealthier. I think it looks really cool. We have our red one.
It does look really good.
Our gold one, teal one, and then probably my personal favorite, our disco livery.
I really like the
Bring the ship to a
the
new level.
turquoise and
That's
gold
also
iridescence that they do with that one
And
paint.
it was a really unique challenge that I really appreciated getting the chance to work on.
There's a little bit of iridescence with this blue, huh?
Jared.
It's not for me. Might be for people like me. Who's the ship for?
For people who likes to look cool and play cool.
For people who want to have a daily flyer that packs a huge punch.
This should be for me. That's it.
It's for your militaristic fighter that just wants that ship they're never going to stop driving.
Who is this ship for?
John Wick.
All right, now here's what I'll say about that. If you buy this ship, you are never allowed to complain about someone attacking you and doing PvP, okay? John Wick, he would not complain about PvP. His whole life is PvP. If you buy this ship, you cannot Care Bear in this ship. This is not a ship for Care Bears. It's a ship for blowing up Care Bears, all right? You are not allowed to complain about getting griefed, ganked, PK'd, nothing. I don't want to hear it. If you're flying this ship, you are PvP all the time. Okay? It's open season on you. All right? Otherwise, no, you're not John Wick. You don't get to claim you're John Wick. All right? Deal? Okay. Now, let's talk about some of the other problems. I've been browsing the interwebs a bit, and I've been seeing a lot of people say if power creep was a ship. All right? I see where they're coming from. My counter argument is, why are people still buying it then? I've been raising the alarm lately, talking about the ills of having everything in the game be monetized and sold for profit on the Power Store. This is just another example. If CIG has to continue peddling ships, they're going to keep getting better and better, and the power creep is always going to be there, because that is what the incentive is tied to. That is the biggest argument you can make for why we need to transition to selling cosmetics only. If you sell cosmetics, then what you get is you get really good cosmetics. But if you sell ships, eventually what you get is really good ships that smoke the older ships. And so if you don't want to keep this cycle going where the new ship is better than the old ship, is better than the old ship, is better than the old ship, we need CIG to switch things up and stop selling ships. That's what it comes down to. We need them to stop selling ships, stop selling armor, stop selling weapons, just sell skins. And that brings me to the next topic. Because there was also a Star Citizen Live recently where they talked about how they do intend to split up items from their cosmetics, and they want to have those be separate elements. Now, they didn't say for sure that means that they're going to stop selling the items on the Power Store. I'm really hoping that is the case. But it is at least a step in the right direction because it means that you can change the appearance of the items that you're finding. So that on its own is a huge win. But man, CIG, please tell me this means what I think it means, because this could be really good for the game economy long term. So that's my review of the RSI Meteor. We'll have to see how it works when it actually is available in the game. Again, if you get this ship, you are still contributing to part of the problem if you buy it. But also, I don't want to hear anything out of you about complaining about PvP. Alright? Not allowed. No more. Can't be John Wick if you complain about PvP. There we go. Alright. Now that we're through that one, let's talk about some of the UI changes that they've got going. Got a little hint of it here. Let's see if I need to go back any. Actually, you know what? I do want to try and stitch a few of these segments that I've been doing as videos. So, I don't know. Do you do intros when you're splitting up a stream? I'm going to try and fake it and not do an intro, but make it seem like you just caught me in the middle of something.
So, we're looking at some concept UI here. Obviously, you can see there's a visual facelift, but
yes, it looks really good, I think.
Super obvious straight away, and that is that you'll be able to access other inventories that are nearby to you within proximity. So, if we start drawing, we imagine we've got our storage box over here, and then
what I find really funny about him drawing the storage box, can you guys tell? Can you guys guess? He's got a storage box. It's right there. It says helmet on the side.
kill the guy.
Didn't need to draw one.
We kill the
He
guy.
didn't need to draw a guy. He needed a corpse on the floor.
He's on the floor. So he would be accessible as well as the tabs up here, and then the inventory box would be over here. Same on the other side.
But you know, they're doing it live. It's tough. I screw up all the time
Dead bodies in
during live.
storage box.
I get it,
Moving stuff around.
but I do think it's
Go to
funny.
the body, go to the box, press F. So it's much quicker to kind of get in there and start looting. We'll just get rid of all this. If we focus in on one of the panels, you can see it's called personal all. That's just kind of the default person would be on the left, and it's all because it's showing everything that is stored upon your person at that moment. If you wanted to see what is in your backpack in particular, you have the side tabs, and then we have a search function which has been added in. If you were to click this, the search box will come out over here, and you can search the item that you want. You have your select all, your path.
Okay, and what I'll say about the search box is the search box is only as good as the search that it provides. So we do have search boxes in some of the terminals available to us in Star Citizen today, but I would argue that the search is not that great yet. So it still needs a bit of work before I can say that the search box is something that I really appreciate. It is a good step in the right direction, but CIG, keep going with it. Make that search perfect, and then I will praise you forever about it. But also, if you could just make it so I don't have a bunch of crap in my inventory, that would be pretty cool too.
I see you have your filters. These filters kind of similar to freight elevator, where you have the drop-down box with the subcategories here. And we're working on these filters being multi-purpose. What I mean by that is, at the moment, filters you click them once and it means I want to see these items. If you click them twice, it would hide that category of item.
So basically, whitelist, blacklist. You get both those functionalities. And the way that I'm interpreting the way that he's saying that is that you get them simultaneously, right? Because you have access to these filters across the top at the same time. You see one of them, it looks like this is whitelisted. But I don't see anything that obviously screams like, oh, this is the ship category, unless we're talking about maybe crafting materials. But it seems like it would actually be the opposite, where this is your whitelist, because here we have what's clearly armor, and we do have armor visible. So perhaps ship components have been blacklisted, and so it's the color of the background that indicates what list it's on and whether it's the white or the black list. But in any case, having access to both of those functions at the same time, pretty dope.
There's a lot of people with freight elevators full of decorations they don't really care about at the
Like me.
so they can just hide all the decorations.
A lot of crap in my freight elevator.
Clear filters, sorting options. When crafting comes in, this will be big because you want to sort by.
Though that does bring up another really important point. CIG, I need you to make those filters persistent. There's been a couple UI things that you said were going to be persistent that haven't really been persistent, and I really need the persistence thing to come into effect with some of this. What I'm thinking of first off is the MFD layouts. Those were supposed to persist, and I have never been able to get that to work the way that I want it to. It's supposed to be that once you set it up in your ship, you have the exact same MFD layout every time you get in your ship, but that has never seemed to work for me. That would be really cool, so maybe revisit during this year of stability and fix that, because that'd be pretty dope. But also get it working here, that would also be most choice, because I can't tell you when I will ever want to see the hanger flare in my inventory. It has always been something that I have to scroll past, and if you could just make it so I don't have to think about it, that'd be great, because I'll just keep that forever blacklisted, except for like the one day out of a year when I plan on actually decorating a hanger.
Quality items here, that kind of stuff, and then tucked away in the corner is stack all. So that's a nice quality of life addition as well.
And a bunch of cargo people just got really excited with the stack all. Actually, you know what? Cargo, mining, PvP, everything. Like, there's all kinds of crap that you wish would stack. I probably run into it with my weapon equipment more often than anything else, actually. Wanting to stack magazines, weapons, optics. Again, I just have so much crap in my inventory. I really need a trash can in the game so I can just start getting rid of stuff. I don't care if I get UEC for it or not. I just want to get rid of stuff. I just want it to be gone. And I don't want to be a jerk and hurt the server by just leaving it on the floor somewhere. So if you just give me a trash can that deletes the entity itself, then I could like do a little bit of cleanup and not be a nuisance. I'm an avid Hull C cargo hauler, so it's a great change so I don't have to scroll for a minute straight. Yeah. Well, and they also talk about normalizing the item size. I think he might have already said it, because he points out that they're all, for the most part, squares, right? So no longer are we going to see a 32 SCU box take up like this much of your screen. It's all going to be like this much, and it'll just say 32 SCU box. So I think that is also another really positive note, because it just means your eyes are going all over the place. Otherwise, not very fun.
It's a nice quality of life addition as well.
Just a nice little addition. Just a nice little addition.
There he is.
Anything about anything about maybe getting to name our boxes, label our boxes?
Yes, so this is your commodity box, and then this would be like a backpack, and one of the options will be to right click and just rename them. So you could say like, oh, this is my box with high quality lighting, whatever.
Yeah.
And just
The naming thing, that's huge for me. That's something that I really wish Dune had. I've been no-lifing that game, by the way. You guys have seen me play it a couple times on stream, but when I'm not at work and I'm not sending out job applications and I'm not actively streaming, I'm just playing Dune like all the time. It's almost a problem. I need some serious help. But the inventory system in Dune is very rudimentary. You just have different sized boxes that you can put things in, and being able to name them would make things quite a bit easier. It might actually already be there, and I just haven't explored the UI enough. That's another thing that I feel like Dune is not really any better than Star Citizen in some aspects, is the UI just does not feel that intuitive at times. Some of it is so simple that it's like, oh my gosh, this is like genius. But then there's other aspects of it where it's like, where was that setting? What did I have to do? For example, if you build a advanced fabricator of any type, you can't create the basics in the advanced fabricator. So if you have an advanced weapons fabricator, you can't create the items that you were making in the weapons fabricator. You can only make the things that require the advanced weapons fabricator, and that just feels really dumb to me. Like, what is so advanced about this table that it can no longer create a nut and a bolt, right? Like, how did we become so advanced we can't do the basics anymore? But that's a whole other rant. I like where we're going so far with the UI in Star Citizen, the way what they're showing.
Gamer, Salty Mike, and Space Tomato. So much content for the next week.
bro, we're not done. We've got tooltips and everything.
Oh my god, here he goes.
So, as you can see, look at the inventory, everything's a square now. Instead of it being a mix of squares and long rectangles, that'll also be applied to it.
And just as a viewer of Salty Mike, I know that every time they mention his name, he hates it. Right? It's like anyone who's watching this that doesn't know who he is. He said this before in videos. Like, now they have to wonder.
Freight elevator, so the ship guns won't take up half the screen. Get a lot more information.
And now I just did it. I just mentioned him in my video.
The equipment pan. Well, I know I just said it. But
I'm part of the problem.
These ones are, but regular weapons aren't. So I'm technically true, but also lying. You can equip your attachments super easy here. 1, 2, 3 is basically like the slot they're in, and then again, if you were to look at your ammunition, you can see which weapon it's viable with. If we go over to the character, we have all the slots. The slots will be shown by default here, and they're contextual. So if you want to quickly see all the backpacks you have available to you, if you were to click the backpack slots, then the various inventories will filter to only show the backpacks. Yep, we have the new tooltips, which are very nice. Rather than being text, we have bars. Got a bit of info here. When we have crafting, then the crafting, the person who made it replaced the manufacturer. So it was drafted by whoever it was crafted by. We have...
That sounds really cool. So, like, if you have a player named Yo Mama, the manufacturer will be Yo Mama. I like the ability to, like, track down who made something, because what if you find something that's, like, really, really good, right? Then you'd be incentivized to find that player and buy another one. Like, hey, you know, I killed this guy that had one of your weapons. He wasn't very good, but, you know, the weapon itself, it seems to be the bee's knees, and I would like to acquire another one for myself. So we could do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is you sell it to me. The hard way is I take it and you die. You know, so seems like it opens up some cool opportunities there. I'm pretty excited about that. What I understand about integrity and durability is the present life of the item, and integrity would be the ability of it to be repaired. So Dune has a similar mechanism, and so do I say Dune, but I hope you guys realize that there are other games as well that do the same thing. It's just there's only so many games that I can play and keep in my mental bookshelf at the same time. So Dune does something similar where every time you repair an item, it will lose a little bit of integrity, and so there you get to a point where it's diminishing returns, where it no longer makes sense to repair that item. It looks like they're doing something similar with this idea, but having them be two separate bars makes me think that every time you repair it, you'll get it up to the same durability, so the lifespan is the same, but you might lose integrity each time you do so. So there is still a cap on how many times you can repair this thing, which if that's the way that it works, that's what I would prefer, because it gets to a point with the Dune system where they have a shared bar where the lifespan of how long you're able to actually use the item becomes very, very short between repairs. And then it's just like, well, I mean, that's the point where you have to throw it away, right? But it can really cause you some trouble if you're trying to get back home after getting stuck out somewhere.
I've taken into consideration wear and tear, safety and durability, and
I also wonder if that's something that can be reverted, like if you clean the rifle, can you get more integrity?
Descriptions can be expanded, and then if you hover onto an item of the same type, you'll see the comparison stats as well. You can make the icons bigger or smaller. If you've got bad eyes, you can make them a bit bigger. Elliot, don't make a joke about Nick. The thumbnails as well. Obviously, there's a problem where sometimes they don't load, or sometimes they appear as holograms. That's been worked on as well. We'll get that fixed.
Sure.
I think that's it. It's probably not everything. There's a lot of stuff that's going on.
No, it's not everything. We haven't talked about the imprinting and the stuff with item recovery v2 and stuff like that. But again,
okay, so out of the entire Star Citizen Live, that's the section I actually cared about. Was just the inventory stuff. I want to take a look at now. Boom! You didn't know I was hiding this the whole time, did you? Yeah, I've got a Photoshop document ready to tear into this a little bit. Of course, that means I need to put my artiste glove back on. The doctor will see you now. Alright, make sure I'm on the right one. So let's give this the obvious caveat of this in no way represents finalized work by any means, right? There are some things that I do find as glaring issues that I feel should be pointed out, because CIG has plenty of time to fix it before this becomes an enduring issue, right? First off, what we're doing down here with the weapons, okay? I'm actually going to have to grab something to do a little bit of interpretive dance for you. It looks like this point right here is also probably a weapon slot on your person. It's right back. Don't worry, I'm not going to grab a weapon and threaten a viewer. That's not what this channel is for. That's what insane people do. I'm just going to get a prop to demonstrate a point in no threatening manner whatsoever, okay? So, don't get excited. Plus, this one has the blaze orange tip on it, so it's clearly a prop. It's not an actual P90. But, like, let's say you've got, hold on. So you've got the weapon on your back, right? When you click that little bubble, what I'm hoping happens... Oh, and by the way, can you tell I've been working out? When you click that little circle where that weapon is, I would like to see your character do an animation and bring it out in front so that you get a better view of the attachments that are on it. And you can kind of do your inspect animations. And you could even do it where it brings the weapon into view, something kind of like this, with the inspect animations as is. But basically, I kind of want to see like something contextual going on with this. So like, you click that, right? And then it would bring you into a sub-menu where now you're looking at your weapon, right? And you have the various points where you can change things. And this could be like superimposed over everything so you can like see it overlaid on top of your character, or it could be like its own screen. But what I don't want is to have to drag something onto this little small dot right here. I don't want to do that, because that's very similar to what we have today, and I never know that I've for sure attached something to the item that I was intending. Right now, all we see of that weapon is the bit that's poking out over the shoulder. But can you tell me what weapon that is? Like, just based off of what the stock shows? Apparently I drew on the wrong layer. So let's fix that. There we go. I mean, because of this menu down here, we're led to believe that that's the Demico. But if you didn't have this, could you tell me for sure that that was the Demico? I think not. And I think my point still stands that, as it is in the verse today, you never really know that you got it onto the weapon you were wanting to. So I want a contextual submenu with all of this stuff that helps me know for sure that I put that optic on the weapon that I wanted to put it on. Now, I also don't like this screen down here, because I feel that that's very limiting for what they are able to do with it. Already, it looks fairly cluttered with the 1, 2, 3 slots that they have per weapon, but I'm hoping that they will do more than just 3 slots per weapon. You know, what about stuff like grips, silencers? I mean, we do have silencers and suppressors and compensators. But what about like different barrel lengths, grips? I said grips. Optics. We have optics. Like different stock options, different like stock pads. You know, I mean, I know that these are space guns, and so there's not a perfect analog for what we have in the real world, but I'm hoping that they do more customization than just putting on 3 slots, right? Like there's the standards for weapon customization have been increasing over the years that Star Citizen has been an alpha, and I think that they need to keep up with the times. So I would get rid of that entirely. Maybe instead you unify those 2 spots into being your gun. And then you could just have like dots that represent the number of attachments you have. And if you did something like the Call of Duty Pick 10 system, then you would have empty dots representing more opportunities to equip something onto it. Battlefield does something similar. I think that that would be a better, more versatile option. What do you guys think, chat? Do you have enough people in chat to respond quickly? Let's see, where am I? Okay. No, we do not. So I will keep talking. The other thing that I would like to see them change is this currently shows your character standing in the world, and that has always been a problem point. Because if you look at your inventory and you're standing next to a wall, all of a sudden that wall causes issues for you. And it might make it so that you can't access the inventory that you're looking at or that you're wanting to, right? So what I would do instead is something like the Destiny 2 inventory, or here we go. Something like Destiny 2 does, where it shows your character so you can see everything that's equipped. You can change all the armors, you can change all the weapons. If you click into a weapon, you can change, you can customize it further, so they do the submenu thing that I'm already talking about. But then all you would need to do to make this perfect for a Star Citizen is just make it so that those inventories that are within the search radius that you're allowing players to access, just make it so that they appear in this menu as like a floating icon here. Right? I think that that would be a much better way of doing this than having the in-world diegetic stuff that they are apparently showing with this. Right? So imagine like all this area is kind of just whited out. You don't see the environment. And then you just have... Wow. My throat's getting dry and my voice is starting to crack. This is getting rough, y'all. Then you just have your box in that screen with you, right? And if there's a body, you know, then... Hold on. We can do better. Then you just have the body there in the screen with you. Right? I think that this would be much, much better than doing the real world thing. Now, I do want to highlight some things. See, there it is again. My voice just cracked real bad. I should go get myself some water before I hurt myself. We've got tier markers here. So tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. I like how the icons feel simple and or simplified. Like right now we do a 1-to-1 render of the item, and I think that that makes it look very cluttered at times. So having just a simplified icon, I think, is perfectly acceptable for a lot of cases. What else? We also do have quantity markers. We have something similar today. They didn't talk about what the idea is with the timer being shown. That might just be a conceptual thing. It might not mean anything at all. I don't see a... Oh, actually, here's something. So these are presumably your armor slots or ammo slots. You've got drum mag here. You might not have known that though because it's very dark. And that's a problem that we have today too. Sometimes. And it's always this battle between like, do they do the blue hologram or do they do something else? And here we're doing a lot of something else, and I think that that's good. But give yourself like a little bit of a backdrop, right? Like when you're in this screen and you haven't selected anything specifically, then you just have an icon like that, right? Like you just draw a magazine. But then you click the magazine and it should open up and then you have your expanded little submenu, right? And you give it an overlay. And then on top of that, then you have your slots, right? And this doesn't even need to be something where you click it. It could just be that you hover over it, right? And then it expands contextually. I think that that's actually the way to go because you want to reduce having to do so many clicks. But just have the player hover over the magazine icon and then it expands into this. And then you have very well lit images of the magazines that you're equipping, right? Let's go back to what we have here. Like, I'm zoomed in on this, and I still can't tell what magazines he's got equipped. Like, I mean, you tell me. That looks like it might be a P4 mag. But it could also be for a P8. I can't tell. So, that would be something to fix. Same deal here. So you could have your icon be that's a med pen. It's a med pen icon. You know what? I'm gonna get rid of it. Let's use something a little more generic. You have your syringe. There we go. No way to misinterpret that. That's clearly a syringe. So you can do your heroin. But you could have that be the contextual icon, and then when you hover over it, then again you have your backdrop, and then your very perfectly lit med pen pictures that you can see exactly what they are. And let's see, we've also got there's the undersuit, chest armor, jacket, glasses, helmet, arms, legs, kind of looks like a Coke can or a Red Bull, but those are the legs. I still hope that they do more with armor customization. So maybe you click on the chest piece, right? And then you open up to a contextual menu where you could swap out the modules that are augmenting your armor's current abilities. I actually made a pretty cool video, if I do say so myself, about that idea. And then one thing that they don't specifically call out, but is pretty obvious, is these inventories are essentially mirrored for the most part. That's probably just to get the concept image done faster while they're still brainstorming about how this is all going to work. Something is wrong with these items because there's a red caution marker. So I guess that's just to indicate that they want to show you something like that, to tell you something, but I really don't know what that would be. There's something going on with these progress bars. They kind of look like little quadrant markers. Maybe that's durability. But I will say, overall, I like the direction they're going with the UI changes. I think that it is a good direction. I would like to get more info, and perhaps they could reevaluate where this is on the list of priorities, because they said that this is not in active development, nor do they intend for it to be at any point in the near future. But I think that that is something that the game sorely needs, is a properly functioning UI for inventory management, because we have a lot of inventory and a great need to manage it. And with great need comes great need. I don't know. I think I was going to try and go for great power, great responsibility, but then it just fell apart in my head and I couldn't get the words out that would make that make sense. Foundation Festival's up. Usually there's some pretty cool skins that you can get for this. There they are. And of course, at a ship sale. We already talked today about how I feel about that, so I don't think you guys need me to go over that again. But Foundation Festival is up if you want to participate. Can be a lot of fun. Foundation Festival is supposed to be one of those like get people together and play nice with each other kind of deals. So, can be fun. I'm going to be right back though, because now my throat feels like hamburger. I should have started the stream with some water on hand, and now I'm really regretting not doing that. So, if you'll excuse me for just 1 minute, I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. That was actually kind of good timing. I had to pee too, so I was able to take care of that. This isn't pee. This is water. Those were separate things. I went pee and I also got myself some water and a snack. You guys should be proud of me. I've been doing so good. Move my trash can over here. I've actually lost 6 pounds so far. serving size on this? 1/4 cup. Okay, yeah, because these are a little smaller than the other fruits I got. That looks like 1/4 cup. Like if I were to break them up and like put them in the thing, I think that's 1/4 cup. See, look, I'm even counting calories. I'm doing really good. I also went to the gym earlier this week. Got a new PR on leg press, 410 pounds. That's a lot of pounds. Like 400, that's a big number. Should have gotten me a plate. Now I just have strawberries in my hand. I don't know what to put them on. This is the plate that I was eating dinner off of just before I started stream. I was eating right before I got started because I had to write up the itinerary. So that's why I was able to pull out a plate out of nowhere. This isn't an Aspen Gold stream, so keep my house relatively clean. Decent guy though, otherwise. What next, guys? Alright, here's a question. In Dune Awakening, you're going to hear me talk about Dune again. Should there be an ever-looming threat in locations in Star Citizen like the worm is in Dune? I was planning on playing Star Citizen today, but it seems like they're still going through a lot of stuff with their maintenance, so we are going to be playing a little bit of Dune instead. Hopefully that doesn't scare people away. But as you are probably well aware, the worm is a constant threat in Dune. If you're walking on the sand for too long, you're very likely to attract it. And if it eats you, you will lose everything that was on your person. This is one of the only 2 ways that you can actually really suffer a great loss in Dune. So the question that I pose to y'all is, should there be a similar ever-present threat in Star Citizen? There is going to be a worm in Star Citizen, so that would be an obvious analog to the worm in Dune is the worm in Star Citizen. Should that be something that you should be afraid of conjuring lest it kill you and take all your stuff? I think it might be pretty cool. And there's a couple things I wanted to talk about with Dune today. I'm going to try and stitch this together in such a way that this will be cohesive as another video. I think that there's some things that Dune does really well that Star Citizen would do well to incorporate. And one of those is its ability to funnel players into the same space. I think I'll be spawning into the deep desert, which also gives me an opportunity to show off something that I'm quite proud of, which is our deep desert base. Oh, no, I'm actually in Haga Basin. That's right, I was killing deserters to get us points for the Landsrad. Surprised this isn't up yet. That's surprising. I am part of a Harkonnen clan, so we are all the red squares. Somehow Seda hasn't been claimed yet. That's kind of strange, actually. Here's another thing that Dune allows you to do that you, like. I don't want this to be in Star Citizen, but I was able to just pull a helicopter out of my pocket. That part I think is it's nice for a game like Dune, but I don't want it in Star Citizen because it would just completely kill the vibe. But let me fly you to the world map so I can take you to our northern base. Actually, no, I need to pick up a fuel cell. There we go. So this is our Haga Basin guild base. We planted ourselves on the far west side, or sorry, far east side. And the reason for that was because we're right next to all these water deposits. You can extract water from these plants. And so, especially during the early game, we had no want for water. And that was a really good move. Then we learned that you can actually use the world map that is right next to us, the border, to be able to fast travel, essentially. And so it was like, oh man, this is like the perfect location to put a base. But then I was entrusted with building a northern base for our guild, which is where I'm going to take you guys next. I just need to grab one of these. Oh, and I need to search that. I also need to stow some items. There we go. Doesn't quite empty me out. Let's stow those. There we go. Now I'm looking good. So I do like the fact that these chests have quick deposit options. I was able to just quickly empty out the majority of my inventory. I do like that. You can also set things up to work with circuits, which does allow some level of automation for machine inputs and outputs, but it is still very limited. There's not a whole lot that it actually lets you do. If you go to general settings, though, you can change the level axis of these things. So you can set permissions for your friends based on that, which is another thing that I would love to see Star Citizen do. But I think that they could easily take it a bit further and make it more fitting to Star Citizen by incorporating some other features into it. I'd like to see some level of machine automation, because right now in Dune there's not a whole lot of that. Like, here's our medium chemical refinery, and I could start up a job, and if you set up the circuit it will output to something, but there's not a way to like set up a ingress chest and just have it start crafting like you would in Satisfactory or Factorio, games like that, which I find that I am greatly missing now that I don't have access to it in this game. Star Citizen already has quite a bit more complicated of a medical system, and Dune just sticks to the basics, which I think is fine. No real preference for Star Citizen changing its position on that. I think that medical gameplay just needs to be more diverse if they're intending for it to be a career path for other players. but I don't want it to be to a point where it's a hassle, right? Okay, so here's our method of fast travel. You go to the world map, and then it's going to plop you out here. And then if you just kind of bounce around and then enter back in at this 12 o'clock position, this will put you next to the base that I was in charge of making, which is our hangar. So it plops me out on the northern end of the map. And then I've built this base up here. So you just turn due north. And look, you can already see it rendered in. I've gotten quite a bit better at building since erecting this in the first place. But it's got some cool features that I think Dune players would be interested in. So by way of kind of a mini tutorial, here is a type of side-mounted ornithopter pad I made using the Atreides build kit. So there's that. But then I've also made these more Drake Kraken inspired landing pads over here. So you can just plop down on one of these too. And it looks like I forgot to refill my fuel cells because everything's turned off and they're not supposed to be. But I've also created this large hangar entrance. I almost said entrance. Entrance isn't a word. And then I'm quite proud of these. These are our repair booths. It's still a little tricky because of the camera angle to get things lined up the way that I want. But ideally you have all 4 feet planted. And it's not supposed to move like that. But it gives you access to the bottom of your ship, which can be really helpful for repairing. And I built this by just creating this platform a half wall up from the ground. So when you crouch, you can get under stuff. But then you have this nifty little platform made out of the corner walls that gives you access to repair your ship. So I'm quite proud of it. I think it's pretty cool. If I take you on a tour through the rest of this base, we'll start with the bottom floor. Made everybody a cozy little cubby to sleep and lounge around in. This was the start of a inventory system that's probably never going to get finished. If we go to the top floor, see kind of a ATC tower that I wanted to make as kind of a lookout. And this extends out onto the balconies, where you have access to all the landing pads, but then you also have this really cool gazebo that I made. I'm quite proud of it, if you can't tell. I even set dinner for everybody. Kind of neat. So you can tell you could probably figure out which parts of the base were built first and then what was added on later, because the building quality increases by quite a bit. And then I was working on adding kind of a control room and then got busy doing other stuff, but maybe I'll finish that at some point. And then you just have some real basic machinery and the power plants that keep things running. You feed those fuel cells, which I have neglected to do. Thankfully, the gates don't require power, because otherwise I would be kind of SOL. But even going straight back out, it's pretty easy to get in and out of those booths. Now let's show you the evolution of this concept that I incorporated into our deep desert base. And if we're really lucky, once I hit the deep desert, there will be certain names in the chat that will help along with story time that I've got planned after this. So the deep desert is supposed to be the PvP section of Dune. There's not really any quest items out here. There's no quest vendors or anything like that. It's all meant to be kind of a one big large arena. And when the game first came out, a lot of players complained about PvP and PvE conflicts. Kind of reminds you of another game I play a lot on this channel, huh? So it seems like the PvPvE debate is, frankly, universal. Anywhere you allow both, people are always complaining about it. And it really started to dawn on me that I was seeing the exact same arguments all the time. Everything that I had heard in countless Star Citizen videos, I was just seeing regurgitated here in Dune too, and it's like, what is going on? And it really kind of surprised me, because in Dune there is so little that you can actually lose when you die. Like, I show you my inventory. Players would be able to loot these particle capacitors from me, this large vehicle fuel cell, and maybe these survey probes. I'm not actually sure about that though. But they wouldn't be able to take any of my weapons or my armor or any of my accessories. I will respawn with those every single time. And so what I'm trying to say is that the cost of death is very low. And you already saw that you can actually just pocket your ornithopter. So if you do get into a skirmish and they manage to down your ornithopter, as long as you hit the ground and pocket it, you will respawn with that vehicle backup tool as well, because that's considered your item. And so you can just take it to a repair station and repair it back up to full health, no problem. Right? So with all this in mind, again, the cost of dying is so low in Dune that it really kind of surprised me that people were complaining about PvP at all. And one of the people that was complaining the very most was this guy that you see talking in chat right now, Sauce. And I'm not going to show any info about the guy because, obviously that would be bad, right? But when Slooty and I started playing on this server, we grinded really hard to get to a point where we had a carrier and a sand crawler. And then the first time we take it out to one of the big spice fields, it closes up almost as soon as we get there. Because there was probably 8 or 10 people using hand compactors to basically consolidate the spice, and then you pick it up. That's how it works in Dune. And I know if anyone plays Dune, they already know that stuff, but I have a multi-game audience, so I have to kind of explain things along the way too. Just bear with me. Well, the hand compactors irritate the worm. It much more so than the sand crawler does. So for us to have done all that work, we're finding that we can barely get any benefit from our sand crawler, because all these people using hand compactors around us are causing the ringworm to come and swallow up the spice field, and then it's closed for the day. So I'm talking to Slooty, and it's like, hey Slooty, why don't we just get rid of these hand compactors? Let's just make a rule that, if you're hand compacting when we want to be using our sand crawler, you can't do that anymore, because we're just going to shoot you and blow you up. Well, one of the first people we got was Sauce. And Sauce immediately complained about us being griefers and gankers. Because, oh my gosh, Sluty came in and he killed everybody, and he didn't even take the spice. He didn't loot anything. What kind of pirate are you? What kind of PvP player are you? Like, he was just going off in chat, just really enraged by the whole thing. And, of course, we thought it was hilarious, so it really didn't help his case with that. But the other aspect was, all of a sudden, we were able to get all the spice that we wanted. Oh, this isn't good. Our shields are off here, too. Need to figure out why that's going on. We're probably out of lubricant. So I'll need to... I should have grabbed some while I was at the Haga Basin, but need to refuel that so that the base stays running for the folks. Yeah, because see, these are our main power generators. These are supposed to be doing the work for us, and they are not. Let's see, where's the... I mean, why is you not working? I guess it's got to be because of that, right? Anywho, so the really interesting thing though is like I said, we had that rule though that if you're going to be hand compacting and we want to be mining spice, we're just not going to let you do that. We're going to shoot you. It is a PvP area. We're allowed to do that. It's not ganking. It's not griefing. It is just what the game allows. You're supposed to be fighting over these spice fields. Like, how are you upset about this? This is the whole point of the deep desert. Around the same time, they also changed it so that half the map, all the way from A up to E, was now a PvE location, which is why even though our shields are totally down, we haven't lost anything because they can't do anything to us. We do need to still be worried about sandstorms though, so that is a reason to keep things safe. I guess we'll be flying back the other way because we need to grab some lube. But so anyways, Saus was one of these people that was initially complaining about us. And we just did our thing. We would just, if you're hand compacting and we want to use our carrier and our sand crawler, we would give you a warning. Say, hey, this area is about to be super safe here soon, so you might want to leave. We would give people a 5-minute warning, and then we'd go in with our army of thopters and we'd just blow everybody up that was still there. Like, all right, I mean, we even gave you a warning. What more could you want from us? But we always had that rule that we were not going to hit carriers or sand crawlers in spice fields. Because we recognize it does take a lot of work, and you know what? You having your crawler there doesn't really hurt us. We can't take all the spice that is there in the field before the spice field gets taken up anyways. So it's not like we can get away with making multiple trips all at once. And we don't have the staff currently to really force you out. So, you know what? We're just gonna call a truce with anyone in a carrier and a crawler. Takes a lot of work. Have fun spice mining with us. And so we have never killed any of the sand crawlers. And now, lo and behold, Sauce and his friend Moniker have become even worse than the griefers they accused us of being, because these people are taking out carriers and crawlers all the time. And the funny part is we're always catching the blame for it because we were one of the first people to really get PvP going on this server. So Sluty and, well, actually most people don't even know that I'm Sluty's friend. I've been really good about keeping that a secret, except, now I'm streaming and telling everybody. But odds are still pretty low that anyone's ever going to figure it out. No one on this server has figured it out on their own, except for a few people, and it's honestly pretty shocking because I've not been very subtle. But now, whenever something bad happens, it's us taking the blame for it. It's like, no, we are honorable PvP players. We don't touch the crawlers or the carriers. That's Sauce and Moniker. Those are the scoundrels you're after. So I don't know. It's just really interesting that Sauce has become the very thing he swore to destroy. He told us that we were going to be the death of the game, that we were the problem with modern society, that we would be the downfall of Dune Awakening, and now he's a lot worse than we ever were. So I don't know. It's kind of funny, right? But that also brings up the PvPvE argument again, and because Dune has gone the opposite direction of Star Citizen in many ways. Star Citizen has stayed fairly firm that this is a mixed environment. It's PvPvE. That's just how it is. And they haven't made too many concessions. Dune, on the other hand, made a lot of concessions. We're flying back to Haga Basin, where everywhere except the shipwrecks is a PvE zone. If I shoot at someone, I don't do any damage to them at all. It's just completely negated. I'm still allowed to fire my weapon. It's not like an Armistice zone in Star Citizen, but I just do no damage. Everywhere except for the very specific shipwrecks that are in Haga Basin, it's all PvE. Alright? And Deep Desert was originally all PvP, or all PvP. So it was like, you know, you have people saying, oh, we need separate servers for PvE and PvP. You straight up have that in Dune. When you go into the Deep Desert, you're getting into ranked free-for-all. Like, you're stepping into a PvP server. You have nothing to complain about. But people still complained. And so what did the developers do? They made it so that half the map is now PvE only. And that okay, well, problem solved, right? Like, okay, if you're a PvE player, you can still go to the Deep Desert. You have areas where no one can touch you. You can still get the spice you need. You can still get those tier 6 items, the titanium and the stravidium. You can still mine all that stuff. And we cut down the entire PvP map in half. More than half, so that PvE players could have a place to play. And so we fixed it, right? No. Nope. No. Just the other day, we were watching a huge debate go on in the server once again. People saying, we need separate PvE, PvP servers. So no, having half the Deep Desert isn't enough. Having the entire Haga Basin isn't enough. Having all these concessions made, it's never going to be enough. So this experience has pushed me squarely onto the side of, you know what? You can make some concessions, and then after those concessions, no more. Otherwise, you will destroy every element of PvP in your game. That's where it inevitably will go, because these people are not going to be happy. And that kind of brings me into instancing in Star Citizen, which I think is a fantastic idea for many reasons. But one of them is because it has the potential to alleviate a lot of the PvPvE debacle. Because you could set up entire paths in Star Citizen where you are completely untouchable. Right? Like, let's say you go from a instanced PvE activity. Okay? You exit the building to an Armistice zone. The Armistice zone extends up to the orbital travel height. So you fly straight up. You quantum travel within a relatively safe zone, so it's very difficult for anyone to ever interdict you. Or you could even just make it so that interdiction isn't possible in a safe system. You go to another Armistice zone, you deposit whatever item you had collected. Like, you can create this entire chain of events where you are completely untouchable by PvP, and I think that that is acceptable, right? But anything past that, I think we've jumped the shark, right? Like there is only so much that we ought to be doing, and I think we are getting to that line with PvP, and I don't think we should go past it. I really, really don't. I could have sworn we had some lube already made. But let's make a couple of those, and then we'll take them back to the base with us while I check some of these other containers. People that seem to think that PvE servers are the answer, I'm sorry, you are just wrong. Like straight up, just wrong. If you have a PvE option and you make it anywhere comparable to the same earn rates, and you make them in any way compatible with the PvP systems, then you will just not have people in PvP systems. It'll just be gone. Right? Like if you're able to trade items across that PvE zone going from server to server, then you would be a moron to be farming items where there was ever a chance of being able to lose it. And so what you will end up with is people will go to the PvE systems or servers and they will harvest up all their stuff there, and then you will just never have PvP again. That's the end game. Because anything else, you're just needlessly risking yourself. And why would you do that? There we go. Got 30 lube blocks. Now I can take these over to our base and get it stocked up, and people will be very happy with me for not having left the shields down. Can't remember which one of these is mine. Here we go, it's this one. And I have written down the Elden Ring analogy, okay? So Elden Ring, hugely popular game, right? Extremely difficult. And granted, it is a PvE game. It does allow some level of PvP because you can enter another person's world and you can fight them, you can 1v1 them. But it's by and large PvE, right? But just extremely difficult. It's not the game for me. I know that I would get frustrated and I would quit. So I don't play that game. But you know what? I have a lot of respect for people that do. You know, I know that I'm not the right kind of person for it, but I still like watching other people do it. And I enjoy the fact that other people are enjoying it. It's the same thing with PvP. And I have another analogy written down here of free-for-all in first-person shooters and ranked matches, right? Like, I play a lot of first-person shooters, but I don't play a lot of ranked matches or free-for-all because I don't want that level of difficulty. I tend to play the more casual options. But those are still wildly popular, right? It's not like there is a lack of players playing those game modes. Those servers still stay full, and I'm just fine knowing that other people are having their fun. I know that it sucks to lose something that you worked hard for, and Star Citizen can be punishing as is, just because of the bugs that you run into, and that part, you know, I get it. It gets frustrating. But we're currently in a world in Star Citizen where you lose hardly anything at all. And so I just don't have the same level of sympathy for PvE Care Bears anymore. Like, I've been doing PvP in Dune, and it's really just hardened me. I'm a hardened man now. And I don't know what to tell you. Like, if PvE only players get what they want, then PvP just will not exist in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think that that's fair to anyone. You know, like, I would probably still have fun in Star Citizen if it was PvE only, but it would come at the detriment to a lot of other people, and that's just not fair. PvP in Star Citizen does have a lot of opportunity, and it can be really, really fun. I think these people just need to break out of their shell and try it. That ultimately, that's what we've been seeing in Dune. Like, yeah, Sauce was one of the people that lambasted us the most. Now he's the most toxic PvP player on the server. And you know what? I'm kind of fine with it. Like, it just means that there's someone to butt up against when we want to do PvP. And we can go find Sauce and Moniker and we can kick their butts. Which we have done handedly many, many times. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about with PvP and PvE. If you keep following the PvE arguments, it's never actually enough. The Dune developers did those things, and it's still not enough. So, you just gotta stop. There's only so far you can go. Now, switching topics a little bit, I showed you the hangar that I built in the Haga Basin, and I just kind of flew by our deep desert base. When I saw that it was out of fuel, I realized I needed to go grab some stuff. But I want to show you the masterpiece of engineering that this is. This is really something I'm quite proud of. The base we have currently is my baby. This was entirely my design. I'm very proud of it. And it gives some amazing functionality with not a lot of space required. And it's not a cube. Oh my gosh, the number of people just building cubes in this game drives me nuts. That's probably very much to Will's point in chat. Base building feels like art to me in terms of pure aesthetics. Yeah, there's a lot of the same stuff going on. And just like how in Rust you can have amazing bases, but most of the time people just build boxes. Look at this. And they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. Somewhere out there, a morphologist is crying because of the horrible architecture that players are using to build their bases in Dune. All right, so look at this. Ours is, first off, one of the first bases you'll see when you come to the last stronghold of PvE before you enter into the PvP only zone. And this is the bookshelf. It holds 16 ornithopters, including assaults and scouts. You can see there's a scout, there's an assault, they both fit. But you can deploy 16 thopters from this thing, and the floor space, if we take a look at the top, if you were to use this any other way, you could store 6, maybe 8. But we've got double that. So just an insane number of thopters. And you could easily mirror this, that you can have up to 32. That just add more, another bookshelf over here on the opposite side of the stairs. But you just land, very similar to the repair bays I built in Haga Basin. It is a little tight, but it's certainly manageable. And if you're in a scout, you've got plenty of space. A little tougher in assault, but still definitely possible. And then you have this spine staircase connecting everything. So each shelf is a 2x2 grid. So you have square, 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 square to create a 2x2 tube that you then plop your ornithopter in. And then you have these half walls to make sure that people honor the space that other people are deserving of, right? And then you've got this stairway that leads all the way down through all 4 floors. Then we move into our manufacturing wing, which we've got our massive spice refinery in the middle, and then we've got our other machines laid out like a factory floor plan. So you've got this walkway between them, but it still keeps things nice and compact. You can just gain access to all the machines you could need. And then you've got plenty of storage off to the sides for water, blood refinery, physical items. We've got some basic power gen under the stairs there where, I mean, what else are you going to use that space for, right? Got a central walkway that connects you to the carrier hangar. And then up here we have our second manufacturing floor, where currently the only thing that we have here is our advanced vehicle fabricator, as well as just a access point for the spice generator or spice refiner. But if we take this walkway across, this takes you into the carrier wing, which is where we also store our sand crawler. Our carrier is just at a different base at the moment. I don't know where it's at specifically. But nice big open doors for getting those vehicles in and out. Spent some time making some slanted walls to give this kind of a modern brutalist look, but without it being a cube. It's not a cube. It's not that hard to not make a cube. See, so it's got kind of this modern architecture thing going on. I quite like it. And then I added these 2 smokestacks to the top because this is just directly over our factory. And then some slanted half inclines. And the idea is these are supposed to be like those kinds of windows that you see on tops of factories, but we don't have half windows that I can put here yet, so I don't know. They still kind of look like vents, which is still achieving the goal of what I wanted. And then if I zip on over here, you can see the backside. I really like this view of the building. It feels like I'm in downtown of somewhere. Right? Like, you've got this nice kind of... Maybe it's an older building, a little more curvy. But then you've got this angular building. And then you've got kind of more of a 80s, 90s building over there. I really like this view. It feels like I built a whole city block. I'm quite proud of it. But that is our base. I hope that people watching have enjoyed it. Gotten some ideas as to how you can make a bookshelf. The bookshelf is the ultimate demonstration of power. Having that be the first thing that people see when they come into the deep desert, it's just, I mean, what can you do with that, right? I do need to switch screens for just a second because I need to do something with the... I need to put something away, and I can't be really showing you guys where it is. Okay, now I can switch back. Oh, there's the outro. We're not done yet. Not quite yet. Alright, so I just refueled everything. So now our shields are back up. Yay! But yeah, this bookshelf is the ultimate power move. Imagine seeing 16 F-35s when you walk down the street, right? That's what this is. You can have your 16 Thopters on display, and it's just the ultimate flex of, we have the military might to crush you. Right now we might be lacking the staffing, but as we continue to fill all these slots, this is going to be one of the most formidable forces on the server. And this is in the deep desert, so it does get deleted every week or so. But with the Solido replicator, you can actually just rebuild this whole thing, and it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. So that's another really cool aspect. But the last thing I wanted to talk about for tonight was just the things that I think Dune does really well. And the first one is that it funnels players into a concentrated space, right? Star Citizen, it's really beautiful, right? You have all these planets with endless amounts of space, but because of that, it actually tends to be quite rare that you just randomly chance upon players. And so Star Citizen could definitely do a lot more to funnel players together to force them into interactions, because that's how you get these growing PvP scenarios. It's also how you just find friends. Half the people that are in our guild now are people that we stomped in battles, and then we just started chatting them up in private messages. And it's like, hey, want to join us? Like, we're always recruiting, and then they do. So it's how you get friends. It's how you meet people. It's how you can provide the experiences you're trying to create for players. So that's something that CIG really needs to figure out how they're going to do in Star Citizen, is funnel players into smaller locations. You can have all the planetary space in the world, but if none of it's fun, then you haven't built a game, right? Base building, I think Dune does do that fairly well, and I think that there's a lot of elements to it that Star Citizen could take for their own game, right? I don't want it to be exactly the same. I think that what they showed at last CitizenCon shows a lot of promise, and there's just aspects here and there, you know. So I'll just say, like, CIG, you know, I know you've got devs playing this game. A lot of the inventory stuff seems like maybe someone had a thought after playing Dune, but, you know, just there are some things here that you can take a look at. I'm not going to point them out directly to you, but if you have any ideas down below, fill them out in the comments. Resource management, I think Dune also does pretty well. There's a constant need to go out and get stuff and then bring it back to your base, and you never feel like you have enough, right? And that's actually a good thing, because it gives you a reason to keep getting more. And right now, you can actually just run out of drive to go mining because you just have all the stuff. Part of that is we don't have long-term goals to work towards. Other aspects of that, though, is we don't have massive sinks like Dune does in the form of the Landsrad. Like, if you look at all of these, if I want to increase our rep with Verota, oh, look, they finally took Seda. I can go and turn in Regis Karpov 38s, which means that I have to go collect all the items to build those, right? And this is actually a pretty expensive thing to be making. Or I can go hold the control point, right? So this alone gives us something to strive for. And why are we striving? Well, each week you get a reward for winning the Landsrad. We are really trying to get this access to a Landsrad vehicle vendor, because that is one of the best items that you can get in the game, is the stuff that comes from this vendor. So we're really trying for that. We're actually pretty close. We just need to get that one in the middle for a bingo. But, you know, stuff like that keeps the players interested. Supply or Die was kind of like that. and they're coming out with something right now that in theory should be quite similar. So, you know, good on you, CAG. Keep going. Keep doing stuff like that. But also, crafting is going to add a lot of sinks that way too, right? Like, I have all these weapons, I have all this gear, but it doesn't do me much good if it's broken and I can't use it. Right? So going out and collecting materials and resources is how I repair it and keep it in fighting form. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how crafting is going to affect our game economy in Star Citizen as well. Inventory, I think that Dune does an okay job, though it does have some complaints that I've already spelled out. You can't name boxes, for instance, and it would really be nice to be able to. But I do like the ability of just quick depositing and not having to actually like open the box and see what's in it. Just being able to just quickly dump my stuff and go. I would love to see that in Star Citizen 2. And I think that they currently have a pretty good balance of PvE and PvP space. I just think that they should not concede any more. And I think that Star Citizen can do something like that and get closer to that line. And I think that they would be good off for doing it, or well off for doing so. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, we've actually gotten through all the items that I wanted to talk about today. If you have any questions, this goes up as a VOD immediately after streaming, so feel free to comment those down below. I'm trying to be live every Friday at 7 p.m. MST. We did take off a bit of time for the last couple of weeks. It was the 4th of July. I also got sick. So there's some things that happened that kept us from being on stream, but we did it today. And planning on doing it next week. You know, I don't know. Maybe it'll be Rapture, right? Maybe we'll just all be gone, and then I won't be able to stream. But I am planning, as of this moment, to be streaming next Friday at 7. So catch me then. I'd love to see you. Love to hang out. And if you do have the means to do so, I'm not trying to say, you know, buy my $28 cookies. And I'm not begging for your cash, but if you do have some extra dollars and you're wondering what to do with them, you could always get a channel membership. Channel members are, they got a special place in my heart. Oh, I clicked it too many times. There we go. Channel members. There we go. Hey, there it is. John Bess and the Prime, thank you for your support. Orbital Bombardiers and above get a mention in each and every video and stream that I do, and it really does help me create more content like this. We covered a whole battery of topics today, so I hope that there is something for everyone in this stream. But even if you're tight on cash, I know it, times are hard. Still haven't gotten the full-time engineering job I'm looking for, so it's not like I'm doing that much better. But subscribing is free. So like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the YouTube things. That also really helps the channel. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is Odd Job Entertainment, signing off.